How much money can I make in a franchise? Other areas that we've seen growth is in business coaching and expense reduction. The restoration space has always been a favorite of mine. Home services is just continuing to grow. You're going to set up a legal entity with so many franchises. Don't assume that the investments are going to be the same, the roles are going to be the same.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast, where you can escape the corporate trap through franchise ownership. Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the Franchise Guide.
Welcome back to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your Franchise Guide, and we're picking up on our part 2 of our series of frequently asked questions and questions that we've been, normally getting on a daily and weekly basis. So we left off with, talking about what was the best franchise, and people ask me, okay, what about industries? Now, keeping in mind with industries, there are going to be certain industries, and you need to be careful with the industry. So why do I say that? With certain industries like cleaning, like painting, like restoration, the franchise company may have different requirements, different roles. And what do I mean by that? Well, one painting franchise may have you painting and physically doing the work and being more hands-on as an operator, whereas another franchise will allow part-time ownership and really have you managing a team and never touching a paint roller or a paintbrush. So just be careful when doing research, and that's where I'm able to help in that. Not every industry is set up the same as far as the owner's role. So, but areas that we've seen, growth and some potential. Number one, the restoration space has always been a favorite of mine. Floods and natural disasters and fires and things like that. Don't care about the stock market. Don't care about the economy. Don't care about many other things that have gone on in the world. So these are, businesses that the job needs to get done. They generate potentially business 24/7, 365. They're a non-sexy business, but they're high margin. A lot of room for growth, offering multiple revenue streams from, water and smoke cleanup to content restoration, cleaning and storage, crime scene cleanup, biohazard cleanup, and potentially in some cases rebuilds. So it's a business that has so many lines of revenue streams that maybe you can just contain and stay within the business. So non-sexy type of business, but it's a necessity business. I always say it's a need business, not a want business. Other areas that we've seen growth is in business coaching and expense reduction. These two industries, small businesses, need assistance, especially coming out of COVID, where people were meeting face to face and had to switch to virtual meetings and Zoom and StreamYard like we're using today. How do we go about doing business as usual? How do we cut back on expenses and, in some cases, utilizing AI to cut back on maybe some of the marketing spend, making, myself and the team a lot more efficient. So, expense reduction, there's always a need for that. What business doesn't want to cut back on expenses? So that is a business line that will just simply go in and work with the small business and cutting down their expenses, negotiating with vendors, consolidating vendors. I've seen this firsthand in my past business, and it works. And particularly in our business, we ended up picking up additional business by picking up and consolidating 3 vendors down into 1. So these are definitely areas that we've seen growth. Things around the aging community, so the elderly, and figuring out kind of where these adult facilities, adult daycares, that in some cases they're called. Where they're able to kind of help individuals and help them in their time of need. So there are business lines that will assist in this area. Assisted living locators is one brand that comes to mind. We have someone looking at Care Patrol. There's a few other brands. I usually don't go into specifics, but those were top of mind as we just had a conversation earlier this morning. That is an area of interest. Now, as far as things that I've noticed is, we get into business for time and financial freedom. I always talk about those two. There are the 5 freedoms that Dan Sullivan talks about, but time and financial seem to be the top 2. And it seems as if technology and everything else going on, Zoom and StreamYard, you're saving driving time. Yet I feel like we still never have enough time in the day to get things done. So I think the idea of getting time back is a big one. And with people working from home and just being as busy, maybe they're just because they do have more time, but they're doing more events with the kids and travel, soccer, Girl Scouts, and things like that. They're always looking for ways of getting things done around the house. So being that they're working from home and now it's something that they're seeing every day, home services is just continuing to grow. Home service can be anything from painting to replacing of a roof, siding, windows, dog waste pickup, anything on the outside, lawn fertilization and things like that. Pool care, is a big one. Maybe you just don't want to deal with that every single week with the chemicals and cleaning things out and the skimmer and the filter. So, home services has definitely increased. And again, it's the whole notion of getting time back. There's just not enough time in the day. There are brands that will come to your home and clean your grill and barbecue. They will go in, clean it, kind of do a full inspection, replace, I believe they replace the propane. Don't hold me to that. And in the event, the grill, the barbecue is just in bad shape, they also have a sales component, and they're able to replace the barbecue and grill for you. So home service has definitely seen an increase in popularity. Tiny homes, another area that we've seen growing, and we've seen a lot of the shows. And with real estate being so expensive, maybe you have elderly parents that you want to move back home, but everyone kind of wants their privacy and space. People are building, as long as it's allowed in your community, tiny homes, tiny home in the yard where maybe you have your kids or your parents or whoever the individuals are. Maybe it's rental income and creating a space in the yard and really utilizing as much of the yard as possible. And maybe it offsets your mortgage or your taxes or expenses and things like that, your insurance and things like that. So tiny homes has been one where they can either add an addition to the home or a standalone in the yard. Fitness, and being, what's the word, as efficient as possible. So we've seen a lot of boutique, small group franchises in the fitness space, and then kind of taking it one level up. There are brands that are really, help with expediting things. So cryotherapy, helping with just about inflammation, helping with weight loss, IV infusion treatments, really, again, speeding up recovery and things like that. The list goes on. Cold sculpting is another one. Different types of laser and light to help with recovery. So basically, a lot of these are around, anti-aging and things like that. So, but we've also seen certain fitness types of concepts that utilize technology to decrease the length of your workouts. So there are companies that utilize, and I don't know the name of the tech off the top of my head, but suits that you wear that contract the muscles and are able to get a much more efficient workout in 20 minutes or less, which is equivalent to, I would say, maybe an hour-long type of workout. So again, fitness concepts where it's proprietary, you have to go to the actual facility, and you're able to cut back on the workouts themselves, down to 20 minutes, which is pretty damn doable, right? If 20 minutes a day, there really shouldn't be much of an excuse, given that short period of time. So those are some popular areas. Do I own the business with the franchise? Yes, it is your franchise. You're going to set up a legal entity. So it may be, ABC, LLC, Enterprises LLC, doing business as, and then the franchise name of Central New Jersey, that as an example. So you own 100% of it. Some people say, well, I pay a 5% royalty. Do they own 5% of the company? The answer is no. You're paying the 5% royalty, and you're asking, obviously, during due diligence, what you're getting for the royalty. And as long as there's value there, that's when you move forward with the franchise. But the franchisor does not own your specific business. They own the rights, the trademark, and things like that. But you own your business. You're able to sell the business, and the franchisor, I think at most they may charge you a transfer fee, which is a small amount that they'll have you pay, depending how that business is sold. How much money can I make in a franchise? And, this is one we can't answer directly because there's a lot of, it depends on the brand, the industry, and things like that. So the franchisor will supply you. There's two sections in the FDD, the franchise disclosure document. The item 7 is the itemized list on the investment. And then there's the item 19, and that's a financial representation. And with that being said, some will disclose the info with giving every franchisee's profit and loss that has a year under their belts. Other cases, it just may be 4 numbers, which are kind of, top 25, bottom 25, and everyone in between. So these are great questions. You're going to create a pro forma. It depends on a lot of factors. Depends on your market. If you're going to have an office and or real estate, you're running it full-time or part-time. And if you are running it part-time, is a general manager needed, and what's their salary, what's their compensation. So those are going to be things to consider. Are you buying or leasing your vehicles if a vehicle or truck is needed? Or are you leasing? Are you renting? Same with the equipment. In some cases, you can lease the equipment. Going back to the vehicles, you could buy a used vehicle and cost you half the amount. So depending on how old the vehicle is. So there's a lot of factors there. They can give you historical information depending on the franchisor as far as what maybe the average territory can yield you from an income standpoint. What can a flooring franchise, well, they may come back and say, okay, there's a flooring, this is the territory. So this is the criteria to build the territory. I'm making these numbers up. It's 50,000 people. You are able to have 3 vehicles, 3 mobile showrooms in the area, and they're each able to generate X amount, 50,000 a showroom. So you're looking at 3 vehicle per territory yielding to the owner about 150,000. Making up these numbers, but these are things to consider when trying to figure out, what kind of money I can make. Well, it depends also on the number of territories you purchase and how you're running it, how involved you're going to be. So these are things to consider. These are potentials. We're not saying, they're gonna create income immediately, but always have that buffer, 6 months living expense, and that buffer in the event the business takes a little bit longer to ramp up, or it's a type of business that is getting government contracts or relying on insurance payments, which may be paying out 30, 60 days out. How long will my business take to get up and running? Again, it will vary on the franchise, but as long as it's non-brick and mortar and there's no office needed, many of them are up and running in 90 days or less. Obviously, if there's a truck that's involved, the equipment, wrapping of the vehicle, it'll take a little bit longer, but that's something to consider with the time frame. And then as far as roles go, as I mentioned, each franchise has their own franchise avatar. There's the idea of a transferable skill set. So they're not looking for someone in the mosquito spraying space, someone that's ever sprayed for mosquitoes or even has an interest necessarily in mosquitoes, but someone that has leadership abilities, can manage people, and is a good networker, going to the chamber of events, overseeing the marketing, overseeing the business and the KPIs and things like that, knowing when to expand the business, knowing at what point to hire a new technician or an additional technician, I should say, because they're hitting capacity. So really what it comes down to in role is, figuring out the skill set. Are you extroverted? Are you introverted? Do you prefer kind of behind the scenes, more of a managerial role? Where there are going to be some franchises that really, you'll do really well just because they're looking for someone with that skill set. You don't necessarily have to be the mayor of the town or really selling. A lot of the marketing and sales is kind of done for you or with another key employee, while you focus on the managerial side and making sure staff is properly trained, happy, motivated, getting what they need and things like that. So the roles will vary. So that kind of the tie-in here, just to reiterate, with so many franchises, again, looking at the industry, don't assume that the investments are going to be the same, the roles are going to be the same. We've seen same industries where the labor is W-2, employees, and the exact same business model in another franchise, and they're 1099, W-9 contractors. So that's another area that, it's more of kind of a preference. There's going to be pros and cons and differences to all. So it's not really what's the better business, but what's the better match for you. And if you kind of just change that mindset slightly, I think that'll be super helpful. So again, as we get these, I'm going to do occasional FAQ shows, but if you want to see some quick little snippets and videos I've done in the past, go to GG, the franchise guides /FAQ. And we have 20 plus frequently asked questions covering a lot of these topics and much, much more that we recorded a few years back. So thanks again for your questions. Thanks again for your support. If you have any additional questions or would like me to elaborate on a certain area, I'd be more than glad to do so. And we'll create a podcast, maybe just on one of the topics, doing a deep dive, and the more specific, the better. So, send me a list of questions and I'll be making sure either in a podcast or in one of the shorts, we'll definitely get your answers depending on how lengthy of an explanation. We may combine a few of those questions, but we'll definitely get back to you. And I, again, appreciate the support. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.